I'm Francois from Production Music Live, today with Producer Notes, and we're taking a look at the style of Jan Blomqvist. We have a fully arranged track here in Ableton, only using Ableton stock effects and instruments plus Serum and sounds from the Beyond Live MELODIC House Pack from PML. Only these samples, MIDIs and vocals used here with a track modeled after the song Midnight Sun with Natascha Polké, with different harmonies, melodies, samples, sounds and vocals. And let's take a quick look over the arrangement. We have a fully arranged track lasting around 4 minutes, starting with an intro. Then we have this typical melodic house sustained bass line here. It sounds a bit like a moog, and the bass is building up and the drums are coming in like drum loops and everything. And then we are going into the verse where the vocals are playing the first verse.
Close my eyes, I don't know where I'm going now. All my life I worry way too much.
And then we are bringing in a bunch of pads here, but you can see a lot of the instruments that are later playing in the main drop part, they're not playing here. We are leaving room for the vocal in the first minute or so. And then we are entering the first break that then culminates into the first drop. And first it's just a loop drop, and then in the second 8 bars we're bringing in a vocal shot and some of these plucks and leads. Okay, and then we go into the second break at around 2 minutes, where the vocals are really playing this verse again, and then it builds up into the main drop where everything is playing, the vocals are sitting and singing on top. And then after that has been repeated 2-3 times, we go into the outro, and you know, the bass notes remain constant and no chord progression is playing. But one by one, quickly skimming into the break here.
Close my eyes, I don't know where I'm going now. All my life I worry way too much. Now this time I let my sorrows way behind.
Yeah, and then drop. And then we are going into the outro. You can nicely hear those toms and low kicks playing together. Okay, let's quickly listen to the groups one by one. So that was the drums group. And in the drop. And the vocals group here in the drop. And that's how they go together. And then we have the bass group down here with the sustained bass lines. And then below that we have the instruments group with all these plucks and pads. And a few effects here. Noise. And that's about it. So before going through the elements one by one, who's Jan Blomqvist? Berlin-based musician now living in Switzerland. He's also a singer, and he's, you know, fusing electronic beats with live vocals and instrumentation. He started in a punk band back in the day and, well, has been very successful over the last 15 years, starting with Big Jet Plane, and just recently released his latest album called Mute. He also has an amazing track collaboration with a remix by Ben Böhmer called Space in Between. I think everybody should listen to this song if they haven't already. Great song. And he's performing at major festivals like Burning Man, Coachella, Rock am Ring, and Tomorrowland. And the singer on the reference track here is Natascha Polké from Switzerland. She's basically also a singer, songwriter, producer, and live electronic artist, and mixes dreamy, melodic-driven electronica, creating this melancholic yet captivating soundscape vibe, and has released on labels such as Anjuna Deep, This Never Happened, and Gardens of Babylon. So let's start to take a look at the drums first here with our kicks. Okay, so we have this kick below everything here. And then it's combined with the sub kick with a second kick. And sometimes, by the way, we are rolling off low end here, for example, in the intro and the outro. That's what's automated over time. And if we are quickly taking a look and playing it together with the bass line, this one is really sustained. And in order to get some groove, that's why we're introducing other elements like the sub kick and some toms. But let's listen to the simple kick just with the sustained bass lines. So very sustained, and we want it more groovy. That's why we're introducing this second sub kick here in position 4 in the first half of this beat and in position 3 in the second half. And if you're wondering, hey, wasn't there something else here that's kind of snappy? Yes, this is a sidechain tied to a tom sound. So let's actually bring that in as well, so we can already hear what's going on here. So the tom sounds can be found here on these tracks. Maybe I can quickly highlight them a bit more so they're easier to see. And so this is basically the part. This and the sub kick, these are the parts that are supposed to introduce more groove below kick and sustained bass here, or around them basically. And you can see we are trying to, you know, distribute them a little bit between the kicks. So this one is sitting here at the end, this one is sitting in the third position, this one is sitting right here, a tom. And these two are sitting in between these elements up here. So if we play them together, and the bass, the sustained bass as well, that's what we have. And maybe that's already enough, and we can quickly loop this section. Now we have some interesting groove going on here. It's the typical Jan Blomqvist type groove. He has this type of setup in many of his tracks. And so what's going on? We are playing a bunch of audios here. So quickly listen to this one in solo. Nice straightforward tom sound. And then this one, a high tom. This one is the low tom. This one is the high tom. And then quickly repeating that one, so we're playing them together. And together with the kick. Super nice and clean. If you are struggling with this, I recommend loop something and then just, you know, get a MIDI controller and hit, you know, put this onto a MIDI track and then just try to position it properly with just like hitting on a MIDI controller. Okay, with the third tom below it. Okay, that's one that's more in the background here. It's being sent through this reverb with a long decay time. Gives a bit of depth in the background. And so these are some of the key elements here. And now we also have, you know, a bunch of clap sounds, as you can see here. And the first one, this way clap here, is the one that's always sitting on the typical clap position 2 and 4. So let's bring this one in. So a pretty low clap, bit more in the mid frequencies. Not super bright. And then we have a second clap here. This one is really short. And this one is sort of playing right before the first clap hit. So let's put that one in. It's sort of falling into the beat. And if you're wondering, hey, what's going on? Why does this look like that? You know, if you reverse engineer it from a reference track, sometimes you have to have a little bit of a weird EQing setup just to match the sound that you're trying to achieve. And well, the third one is the late clap here, also around the first clap, not around the second one. We are leaving all these shenanigans just in the first part of the beat. And so here we have a setup for an interesting drum groove already. We can bring in the low kicks now. Okay, and now we can bring in the bass line again and listen what it sounds like. And all these claps that we're introducing here are kind of more lo-fi. They're not super present, not super bright. It's just not like this EDM type setup here. It's more chill, more laid back, and more lo-fi. And we're trying to make everything a bit more rounded, more mid-frequency oriented in this type of style, because it's not full on, fully blasting EDM. It's a bit more dreamy. Okay, below that, this percussion loop. Basically 16th notes here. And also we have this crash at the beginning of the pattern. Okay, nice. And now you could be wondering, hey, we have all these cymbals here in the cymbals group, but essentially we just need a drum loop or a hi-hat loop and a shaker loop. But since we want to sort of really reverse engineer what's going on in the original, we need a whole bunch of tracks to get there. But I don't really recommend doing it that way. This is just, you know, reverse engineering what exactly is going on in the reference track, more or less at least. And there you can see we have, you know, some hi-hat on the first beat, so that's the kick. Quickly just going to solo them and go through them, and then we have the off hi-hat. And the next one we have is the late hi-hat. So if you put those together, we have... And then we have another late closed hi-hat behind this on the fourth position. Now I'm here. And then we have a long late hi-hat every second beat. And then we also have a ride sound on the third position, so the offbeat position. So with it and without it. That's the top end. Here's another ride sound, by the way. I'm quickly bringing that in as well. Pan to the left a bit more. Oh, that one has the long tail here. We are reserving these for peak parts in our tracks always. And then we have two shakers here. Basically, let me play them one by one. Typical shaker. 16th notes, by the way. Hold on. It's the other one. And auto pan around your ears. And then the other shaker is a bit more off-griddy. You can see if we are setting this to 16th notes, these are late here. And combined. Okay, and let's put the kicks back on. Let's put the kick with all the cymbals. Okay, I think very important is the setup here with the claps and with these toms and the percussions and the hi-hats. They need to be a bit swingy, so they need to be a bit late in the second and fourth positions. And that's, you know, that's an achievable task, I would say, with this type of setup here. And then there's this final hat loop here. Sidechained here with this ducking device that is a setup like an LFO tool. Okay, together with all these other. All right, so going over to the bass line here, it's also sidechained and sometimes gets a low cut, and it has a little bit of, saturation on top. But let's start with the low notes here, sub. You can see these overlaps in the notes that are making sure that we have a nice glide between them whenever they're playing. And we can see it's sidechained to the tom here. If you're quickly playing it, you can hear this click. And if we look at the sound, we can see two saw waves are being played here. This one is almost 2 octaves higher, but it's playing the fifth. And A is going through the filter and B isn't. So we're just taking the lower tail of that one, and now we have this typical, Moog type bass sound here going on. And again, we have these overlaps here and here. And how does that work? We are setting Serum to mono and legato and putting the portamento up. And then you're getting these nice glides. And now we have another sub sitting below that. And this one is really the low one. So let's quickly take a look at the setup here. It's also sidechained to the first tom. And we have, a sine wave down here, or sine wave V thing, which is called saw rounded to square, but I would argue this is more a sine wave. And we also have a saw wave here, sending both through a filter, or no, actually B through a filter. This one doesn't really need to be filtered. And now we have a proper sub setup. And now this sidechain is coming from our shaper here. And now we have a third one. And this is more like the re-space. Here we have more voices. We are a bit more in the middle. We have 8 voices. We are sending that through a filter, and we are making sure they are sort of distributed a bit more detuned, a bit more widely. But everything is sort of playing the same MIDI pattern here. This is equal for all of them. And let's play it together with the kick again. And there you have a great bass foundation together with the drum foundation below it if we're playing all the drums. There you go. So let's go over to the instruments group, what's going on here. Also being sidechained a bit and saturated a bit just for fatness, because we're using, you know, Ableton stock effects and instruments plus Serum. Sometimes we're putting a bit of saturation on such a group to make it sound a bit more fat. And let's quickly look at the chord progression first. So I'm going to the piano here. And don't worry, like the entire group here, sidechain to the kick, so don't worry about these clicks in the background. So let's look at the chord progression quickly. Our first chord is E minor. And what's going on here, if I'm removing the scale and we're just, you know, looking at it like this with the gaps in between, let me bring G down an octave. There you go. That's E minor, minor third followed by major third, and the third is brought up an octave. It's always a nice sound. So here we have a G major 7 without a third, because G is the root. And that would be our major 7 chord with 3 semitones in between, followed by 2 semitones, followed by 3 semitones. Typical G major 7 setup. But we're keeping the third out of it. Here we have B minor, minor third, major third. And that's an A major chord. Major third followed by minor third. And then we're basically repeating everything. The only difference in the second go around is D here. And in this case, we have a D5. So we're playing D as a root note and we're playing the 5th on top of it. And then we are repeating the root note up here. So we are basically exchanging the bass note in our chord progression. And overall, it fits nicely into E Dorian scale. So let's take a look at the plucks here that are playing on top. Let me play them in solo quickly. So we're playing saw rounded to square 2 times, and one is 1 voice and the other one is 8 voices around your ears, and it's getting plucky because LFO1 is controlling the chorus pitch here, or the pitch, and we can see that in the matrix. So this form, this shape of LFO1 is controlling the pitch of oscillator A and oscillator B. And we have a reverb here, play it size 45%, mix that to 25%. We still have another LFO here controlling the fine pitch, so it has a bit of this instability to it. The A fine, B fine. All of these LFOs actually are controlling the fine to just like give it a little bit of this movement and sound a bit more analog. And then we're rolling off low and mid frequencies here, but not too harshly, to have it sound a bit more natural. And let's actually put in the pads as well. So here's our pad chord progression, and we are playing this sound with the pad. So we are playing a Juno wave with 6 voices here and another one that's slightly positioned differently in the wavetable position. If you take a look, you can grab them here through this knob. And this is the setup with long attack time here in envelope number 1. And then filter MG low 12 decibels per octave filter here, and we have LFO1 slightly moving the filter up and down, so opening it up and closing it. And LFO3, which takes 4 bars, opens up the filter over the time of 4 bars. So in the 4th bar, it's opened the most, and then it goes back down and closes a bit. So these two sounds really are the instrumental foundation of this track and of this drop. Because now you can throw the bass below it and the drums as well. And now on top of that, we have this signature element of this track, which is next to the vocal in this analog lead thing. So, and it's also a very typical Ben Böhmer element, by the way. He tends to use that a lot in his tracks as well. We are just playing one note here, and we have our serum set up in a way that we control the pitch bend of this note over time. So what's going on here? Pitch bend is at 0 and then it goes down. And if you look at the matrix, we can see a bunch of other mappings here. The important one really is the mod wheel, which is set to go up in pitch by 2 semitones and to go down in pitch by -5 semitones. Going lower down here and also here. And this is basically what we're doing over time here every now and then with this setup. And again, we are playing saw wave and a second saw wave here slightly altered with the sync in the second oscillator, and then really important rolling off some high end of the sound to make it sound more smooth and more analog style, because otherwise you have the high end. And then also with this filter off, we really want the smooth edges of this thing. Together with pluck and pad. And now below that we have this lead low. This is really a counterpoint supporting role here together with this pluck. It's really a frequency and groove filler somehow in my view. And allows for a bit of depth in the sound here as well. Rolling off the low end on that one. And let's quickly take a look at all these little drone elements that are going on here. For example, we have this lead transition element here on our root note, playing here with this pattern, kind of like an Afro House one note arp. So saw wave, 10 saw waves voiced together here, and filter opening up, and a bit of noise in there as well, some reverb on the sound, bit of a low cut, and this is what the matrix sounds like. So mod wheel controlling the filter frequency here, so you can play that on your keyboard, on your MIDI keyboard, and that's exactly what's happening here into the drop. And now that we are playing the vocal, we are not opening up the frequency higher of that one. So another element that behaves similarly is this one and on top of it. This one just has one note playing through here, and then all the heavy lifting is done with the LFOs in the sound here in Serum. Because this LFO1 shape here is opening and closing the levels. And this LFO2 shape here is closing and opening the filter. With 16 notes rates, both of them. This is for the lazy people who don't want to draw in 16th notes into their MIDI clips. They set it up this way. Pretty similar setup here in our effects group, and this is what the matrix looks like. Nothing too crazy, so I'm skipping to the next one. Just listen to both of them together. There you have a nice drone filler setup for your frequency range, and then we also have this plug low playing along. Again, on E as well. This one has a bit more, where is it? This one has a bit more depth. And, you know, you hear an octave in the sound as well. So it seems to have two voices at least. Two different oscillators. This one is playing an octave higher than this one. Yeah, and our MIDI pattern here towards the end is a little bit quicker. It's 32s. Bringing a bit of movement into it, always like with this, that actually fits nicely with the end part of the pluck here. So here it's playing the 32s. Adding a bit of movement to this loop if you want. And then on top of that we have this high pluck sitting. That's just, you know, a tin licker style introduction of the next bar. So it's like, you know, one note of a saw wave here, again filtered through this MG low 12 decibels per octave filter, and we are sitting on the E up here. And sending that through a longer reverb tail. Let's quickly take a look at that tail. It's decay, 8 seconds of decay time. So it's not the send reverb here, which I'm quickly showing as well. This is a 3-second decay time here, low cut and sidechained. And on our master, we have just compression, saturation, and a bit of limiting. Nothing crazy here on these channels. Just so you've seen that as well. And below that, in our drones analysis here, we have these two Atmo pads filling out our background as well. And they're subtle in the background. This one has a bit of movement, this other one has a bit of depth. You know, a different reverb area, 4 voices with the basic mini shapes here, and then we are setting the size to 35%, decay to 5.6, and a bit of delay on top. And Atmo 2. What is this sound doing? This one is moving around nicely here. Junos. So we're panning this one a bit, and also we are moving this wavetable here around. So it's getting these upper harmonics. And it's always a nice trick to sort of keep it interesting in the background. If we are playing this all together, we are, by the way, also filtering this up and down over the group control here, over the arrangement overall. And just in this first drop, at some point, we're starting to really open this up. Okay, so let's play them all together. Pluck high, pluck low. Ah yeah, we forgot about this one, the transition pad here. So this one is slightly opening up towards the end of important patterns. And sort of announces that something else is going to happen soon. It has the slow attack time here, so it really takes a while to come in. It's basically sine waves. This one is an octave higher than that one. Nothing crazy going on here, just announcing, like kind of like the slow wave announcing that something else is going to happen soon. Okay, and then we have this other filler element here as this keys group, where I'm not sure if you really are able to tell the difference, because quickly showing it for completeness. Okay, so hard to hear, but what is it doing? It's basically sitting on top of the toms that are playing. And it's sounds more like a Swedish house mafia song. That's what's going on here. Don't want to go too much into depth with this one because it's not really essential for the style. It has dull toy as wavetable here, and you know, saw wave as the second wavetable. Envelope looks like this. Envelope 2 controlling the filter cutoff here with a very short decay time. That's what's going on. If you want to copy the sound, stop your screen. And rolling off low end and high end. So if we zoom out of everything and quickly analyze our arrangement here, we have the intro where for the most part we are playing these Atmos and plucks that we just took a look at. And we have this one distorted lead extra element which we haven't looked at yet, so which is also Serum. Quickly opening that up, one basic saw wave. And then we are crushing that with distortion, and we are sending that through a chorus and dimension expansion and whatnot. And then we are going through an EQ here, again, carving this out. This is a reverse engineered sound again. Not necessarily how you produce this from start to finish, but from finish to start, sometimes you have to do it this way. And the most important thing here is the amplifier. Really beefing up that sound and also providing the tail for the sound, and then you already have that reverb with a decay of 6 seconds going, and then you're adding the amplifier on top of that. That's why the, you know, the tail also sounds pretty amplified. So the drones and Atmos and one-note plucks are sort of taking over in the intro and in the outro parts, and in the other parts this distorted lead, for example, is not playing. Then, you know, the sustained bass lines are taking over as soon as the bass is coming in and the kick removes the low cut. And here we also have our vocal Atmo playing in the background from the PML Vocals Volume 2 pack, but it's also part of the project file here in this Melodic House Beyond Live pack as well. So the verse starts playing, we are keeping the instruments under control. I don't know where I'm going now. All my life I worry way too much. So we are tricking this delay effect here, by the way, by using the main vocal, so our own vocal on this track as an input for this sidechain here. And we're saying, hey, trigger that thing pre-effects, so before all these effects are being applied, and take down the signal, you know, so the delay, the ping pong delay that we have sitting here is not interfering when the vocal is super present, but as soon as it goes out a bit, we can then increase the delay here. So quickly soloing that.
All my life, I worry way too much.
You know, now you have delay, and when it's present, it's ducked.
Worry way too much.
This is kind of automation for lazy people on your vocal delay. And on top of that, we had a look at that before is our second voice. And this one is sort of singing the same stuff a bit higher, and we are taking a longer decay time on the reverb on that one, and, you know, removing some low end and leaving room for the main vocal.
Don't know where I'm going.
And we're also mixing it a lot lower.
Don't know where I'm going now.
And then overall the vocals group is sidechained as well. So back to the arrangement overview here. Then in our break part, or towards our break part, we're bringing in our first pad. And I think we didn't mention this one here. So this analog ARP is also interesting. Let's quickly take a look at that. So really nice MIDI setup here. And let's quickly take a look at that sound. I think we skipped that one before. So this one has basic shapes, saw waves with a high pass here. But in the effects section, we also have a low pass filter. And you can also see our EQ here is moving up with the mod wheel. So if you take a look at the mod wheel and how it's automated up here. So this is how we are controlling the EQ over time. And again, we are bringing in this entire concept towards the end of our drop. And this is a typical technique for Nora En Pure, you know, also for all these types of melodic house tracks that sort of try to announce something without, you know, putting all these snare fills around your ears. This is more smooth, and it's kind of like the way to say, hey, I want to sort of give the impression of a 16th note fill, but I want to do it smoothly. So quickly wrapping up the arrangement, we are playing this break, and then we are going into the first drop. We're playing that 8 bars, and then we are bringing in, you know, the plucks here for another 8 bars and for another 8 bars, then combining that with these sort of soft fills. And then we're going into the second break where we're playing the verse. We'll have full playback in a minute, and then after that verse is being played 2 times, we have our second drop where the full plucks are playing right from the start, keep playing. And then towards the end, when we still again want to announce our different part, which is the outro with, you know, constant bass note here, we are playing these analog ARP fills, sort of soft fills again, to then go into our outro. So pretty straightforward setup: verse, break, drop, verse in the break and drop, and before that an intro, and after that an outro. So summing up, the key elements of this sound are really like this drum, kick, and sub kick or sub tom setup. That's really important, sort of to get that groove going under your sustained bass. So if I'm quickly going back to the kicks, and then you put in these toms that are highlighted here. You have a nice groove foundation, and now you can play the sustained bass alongside. And then you have some dispersed claps placed around it. But nothing here is too bright in the frequency range. Just smooth, melodic house, deep stuff. Let's just regard these cymbals and shakers as our hi-hat loop, and I'm grouping them and just quickly bringing them in. Okay, and then you have a whole bunch of one-note arps, leads, and plucks down here, high, low, you know, centered, that fill out your frequency, but your, you know, since the bass is moving with the fifth on top, you already have the song going. So now we are taking other elements that are more constant. And then the melodic element that sort of gets the attention, the center of the attention. But it's also such a smooth melodic element that it still leaves room for a lead vocal to then come in and take the show. And this one is combined with these, you know, pitchy analog leads that are really signature for this song. Yeah, that's really the key for the style. And then you need dreamy, airy vocals. So and that's the recipe, in my opinion, to sort of get closer to the sound. So I hope you enjoyed this little walkthrough here. Feel free to check out the links in the description for this melodic house pack Beyond Life with, you know, a full Serum preset pack in there with 70 plus MIDIs. For each preset, a MIDI to get you started with a full-blown sample pack with one-shots and loops, you know, in there as well. 300 plus samples, and we have 6 fully arranged tracks as Ableton project files, just like this one, to, you know, go inside, learn, reverse engineer, maybe even like copy a group like this into your track to have something you can start with and then replace elements to your needs or to your tastes. So feel free to check that out in the description. Also, if you want to learn melodic house production from start to finish, we have a full start to finish course linked in the description as well. Drum samples linked in the description. If you want to learn arrangement, a new full arrangement course for electronic music, also linked in the description. And if you're saying, hey, this all sounds fantastic, check out the PML Everything bundle that provides you with all the value from our entire store. It's the best way to support our work on these channels here as well. I'll talk to you again soon, and let's have a full playback through the track.